In the frozen darkness of the North Atlantic, the sea churned with deadly purpose. February 3rd, 1943, night when everything would change for 904 men aboard the USAT Dorchester. The ship was packed tight, young soldiers crammed into narrow bunks, their breath visible in the cold compartments. Most were merchant marines and army troops, heading toward an uncertain mission in Greenland. They'd been warned about German U-boats hunting these waters, but few understood the true danger. That night, most men were sleeping in their clothes, not from choice, but from necessity. The ship was cold, the ocean was colder, and everyone knew survival could depend on being ready at a moment's notice. Convoy SG-19 was moving slowly through the icy waters, 4 ships, traveling together for protection. The Dorchester sat in the middle, surrounded by escort vessels hoping to detect any submarine threat, but the Germans were patient and clever. U-boat 432, commanded by Captain Carl-Jürgen Witte, had been tracking the convoy for hours. These waters were a hunting ground, and the German submarine crew knew exactly how to strike. The night was moonless. Dark clouds covered the sky, making visibility near zero, perfect conditions for a submarine attack. At 12:55 a.m., U-432 fired a spread of torpedoes, aiming into the center of the convoy. One torpedo struck the Dorchester directly on its starboard side. The explosion ripped through the ship's hull, tearing open metal and flesh in the same terrible moment. Chaos erupted instantly. Men who were sleeping seconds before were now scrambling for survival. The ship's power failed, emergency lights flickered, smoke and seawater filled compartments. Panic began to spread faster than the flooding. 4 chaplains were aboard that night, 4 men who would soon become symbols of extraordinary courage. Father John Washington, Rabbi Alexander Goode, Reverend George Fox, and Reverend Clark Pohl. They would soon prove that humanity can rise even in humanity's darkest moments. The ship was going down fast. Water rushed in. Men fought to escape drowning compartments, climbing over each other in desperation. Lifeboats were being lowered, but not quickly enough. The Dorchester would sink in just 27 minutes. Hypothermia was as deadly as the torpedo. The North Atlantic water temperature hovered around 34 degrees, a killer in its own right. Any man who fell into those waters would lose consciousness within minutes. Survival seemed impossible, but this is where human courage would reveal itself, where ordinary men would become extraordinary. The 4 chaplains understood the situation immediately. While others panicked, they acted with calm purpose. They began distributing life jackets to soldiers, helping men escape the sinking ship. When the life jackets ran out, something remarkable happened. The chaplains removed their own life jackets and gave them to soldiers who had none. They knew what this meant. They knew they were choosing certain death. Witnesses would later describe an incredible scene. As the ship tilted and began to sink, the 4 chaplains stood arm in arm on the deck, praying together. They weren't just from different religions. They represented different worlds. A Catholic priest, a Jewish rabbi, 2 Protestant ministers. Yet in that moment, they were united by something deeper than theology. Their whole act was one of pure, selfless humanity. The Dorchester sank into the black waters at 1:22 a.m. Of the 904 men aboard, only 230 would survive. The rest disappeared into the freezing Atlantic, victims of war's brutal randomness. When rescue ships arrived hours later, they found an ocean of floating debris, life rafts, pieces of the ship, and the bodies of men who had been alive just hours before. The story of the Dorchester would become more than a tragedy. It would become a testament to human dignity. 4 chaplains who chose sacrifice over survival. Soldiers who faced death with unexpected grace. If you want to hear more stories of extraordinary courage from World War II, consider subscribing to our channel. The military would later investigate the sinking, piecing together survivor testimonies and naval records to understand exactly what happened that night. Military intelligence reports detailed the U-boat's precise location and trajectory, revealing how the German submarine U-223 had stalked the convoy before launching its deadly attack. Captain Hans Mowinkel, commanding the U-boat, had no idea of the extraordinary human drama unfolding on the Dorchester's decks. For him, it was another strategic strike in the brutal Atlantic campaign. His submarine had been part of a wolf pack targeting Allied shipping routes, systematically disrupting supply lines and military transport. Survivors' accounts would later paint a more nuanced picture of those moments. Private William Bednar, one of the few who would live to tell the tale, described hearing the chaplains calm ices, even as chaos erupted around them. They weren't just giving out life jackets, Bednar would later recall. They were offering spiritual comfort when hope seemed impossible. The theological differences that might have divided these four men in ordinary times became completely irrelevant in the face of imminent death. Father Washington, Rabbi Goode, Reverend Fox, and Reverend Popeling represented different faith traditions, yet they embodied a universal human spirit of compassion that transcended religious boundaries. Military historians would later note that the Dorchester's convoy was part of Operation Sledgehammer, a critical supply mission designed to reinforce Allied positions in Greenland. The ship was carrying troops, equipment, and crucial supplies that could have made a significant difference in the ongoing war effort. Its loss was not just a human tragedy, but a strategic setback. Forensic reconstructions would reveal the precise mechanics of the torpedo strike. The U-boat's weapon struck the ship's starboard side, immediately compromising multiple compartments. The ship's design, meant to withstand significant damage, couldn't compensate for the precise hit that punctured its hull at a critical point. Hypothermia became an equally deadly enemy that night. Medical records from survivors showed that even those who escaped the initial sinking faced extreme risks. The North Atlantic's brutal temperatures meant that consciousness could be lost within minutes, making rescue operations incredibly challenging. Military protocols for maritime rescue were rapidly evolving during World War II, but nothing could have fully prepared rescue teams for the scale of this particular disaster. The Coast Guard cutters and accompanying naval vessels worked desperately to recover survivors, knowing that every minute counted in those freezing waters. Technological limitations of the era played a significant role in the tragedy. Communication systems were primitive by modern standards, making coordination between convoy ships difficult. Radar technology was still in its infancy, which meant detecting submarine threats remained challenging. The personal histories of the four chaplains would later become as important as their heroic act. Each had a unique journey that had led them to that moment on the Dorchester's deck. Father Washington had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in New Jersey. Rabbi Goode had been a passionate advocate for interfaith understanding. Reverend Fox had served in World War I and understood the psychological toll of combat. Reverend Popeling came from a family with a strong tradition of religious service. Their individual stories would become emblematic of a generation that understood sacrifice not as an abstract concept, but as a lived reality. They represented thousands of military chaplains who provided spiritual guidance during one of humanity's darkest periods, offering hope and comfort in situations where hope seemed impossible. The U.S. military would eventually award the four chaplains the Distinguished Service Cross, the highest honor possible for their extraordinary act of selflessness. But no medal could truly capture the profound human drama that unfolded on that ship that night. Their legacy would extend far beyond that single moment of sacrifice. In the decades following the war, the story of the four chaplains became a powerful symbol of unity, interfaith cooperation, and human dignity. Veterans organizations, religious groups, and educational institutions would continue to commemorate their actions, ensuring that their extraordinary deed would not be forgotten. The National Four Chaplains Memorial Foundation would be established to preserve their memory and promote the values they embodied. Annual ceremonies would be held across the United States, reminding generations of the profound potential for human compassion in the face of unimaginable adversity. Memorials would be erected in military chapels, universities, and public spaces, each serving as a testament to a moment when religious differences dissolved in the face of shared humanity. Survivors of the Dorchester would go on to share their testimonies, keeping the memory of that night alive. Many would speak not just of the tragedy, but of the incredible moment of solidarity they witnessed. Four men of different faiths standing together, offering comfort and hope in humanity's darkest hour. Scholarly research would continue to explore the deeper implications of their sacrifice. Historians would analyze how their action represented a microcosm of the broader Allied effort, a united front against divisiveness and hatred. The story would become more than a war narrative. It would transform into a parable about the power of human connection. Photographs and personal letters would be preserved, offering glimpses into the lives of these four remarkable men. Before that fateful night, their families would carry forward their legacy, speaking at memorial events, writing books, and ensuring that future generations understood the true meaning of heroism. Military chaplaincy would be forever changed by their example. Training programs would use their story as a profound illustration of spiritual leadership, demonstrating that true service transcends religious